All right, so back for another one. We were able to see Obsession and Backrooms this past week. Both very well received from the both of us, I would say so. Um, both different movies, both horror. One's more of like a psychological terror for Backrooms, and then I would say for Obsession was more of a traditional horror film in your face, very personalized about people.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Backrooms is more about like the place and the space and the
Yeah.
effect that would have on you in this kind of weird way.
Right.
Both had elements of fantasy, though. You have these rooms that just expand open, and
True.
then you have the other one with like a wish. But it was generally, I would say that, one's about the place, and then the other one's about the people, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say instead of, because the last episode we spoke about the drama in the beginning, and we put in a lot of spoilers. So we're going to try to not do that and get everybody to go see these movies because they're
good.
both excellent. We were
They're-
both very impressed, both very different.
Very different, very good, but also I think, based on what we had talked about last week too, I think it's very encouraging that we encourage people to go see movies that are made by younger people.
For sure.
Right? That are different and that are unique and that have something else to offer besides besides what the big studios are putting out and placing out there. I think that's a good thing for us to do.
And this is the best opportunity, too. I don't know, like, next time we're going to get a 20-year-old
And
and a 26-year-old director
Yeah.
making. I mean, they basically made blockbuster summer hits in a way.
Yeah, they knocked a Star Wars film out of the water
Instantly.
Easy.
Yeah, I think Obsession opened #1. Star Wars, the Mandalorian and Grogu opened the next week, and it took the first spot. And then Obsession came back the third week and retook it. And usually horror films kind of have this, their opening weekend is their strongest weekend. Like they have the biggest gain, and then it typically drops off in terms of profit margins. Like I think it's usually like 50 to 60% in terms of the next weekend.
Yeah.
This is maintained.
Oh, really?
I
It's
think
maintained consistency
it's
with
if
that.
not gotten better. Like the fourth weekend is almost just as strong as the second and the third. I think the first weekend was still the strongest. I'll have to double check that, but yeah. So it showed its staying power, which is fascinating. You don't see that for movies like this. I guess I know more a little bit about Obsession than Backrooms. I'm not sure how they've been doing these subsequent weeks, but I know it's on track to be A24's most profitable film.
Yeah, well, I did see something earlier today where it said that Obsession is supposed to be like the fourth largest box office before what we were setting up before. That it's supposed to be the fourth biggest kind of horror movie in terms of
Of all time.
yeah, in terms of like sales over the like theatrical release.
Insane.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's but and on a budget of $750,000 is
With actors you're very unaware of. They've
Yeah,
been
they're
in
not-
some things, but
Yeah, but they're not big. They're not a Brad Pitt. They're not an Angelina Jolie.
No.
They're not these huge Natalie Portman. They're not big. And
They're
they
not
did
big.
phenomenal. And they did,
So-
and especially in Obsession, they did. Every actor for that one did a phenomenal job at selling the plot, selling the writing, selling the story. It was great.
Yeah.
It was a great movie.
yeah. No, so impressive. I mean, yeah, I feel like when we saw it, I tried to come out of the theater, because usually I have critiques, whether it's the writing or
Yeah.
the editing or there was some weird...
It's always a very fun conversation we have afterwards.
Yeah, it's always just like, okay, what could they have done better? But for this one, I was like, I don't know. And I think considering that it was so low budget of a film, it made it even harder to critique, because it's like, can
Yeah.
you really critique someone who's, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
it was
hard
the way that it was done. It did not feel like it was a $750,000 film.
no.
It did not feel that way at all. And I think that's what was really good about that, is that it didn't feel that way. Knowing that was the budget, I thought, this was, that they were going to maybe be a little cheap with certain stuff.
Right.
But the settings were really good. I still said, I think I told you yesterday, that I said they had to have used Airbnb.
Oh, yeah,
for some of this stuff.
yeah, there's no set
because
design.
there was no way they had studio space, and they might have, but I find
Very
it very
unlikely.
tough to
Yeah.
to think that's true. But yeah, they also, and I think it's very interesting though, like of the under 35 population, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was Obsession and Backroom were like the big movies. That
Yeah.
was the big, I don't know, when we saw Obsession, there was a group of high schoolers there.
Oh, you mean Backrooms?
Backrooms, yes.
Yeah.
There was a few high schoolers there that were like on their phones.
Snickering on their phones, and
Yeah.
eventually Chris had to lean over and be like, "Yo,
Yeah. No, I didn't say that, but
stop."
yeah, that's exactly what I said. I very kindly told one of the kids, I was like, "Hey, can you just tell one of your friends to just stop?"
And they
talking?"
listened for
They
5
did.
minutes.
Yes,
and
they
then-
did. Yes, to their credit, they did listen for 5 minutes.
And they took their phones back
and then
out.
took their phones back out.
I mean, they had to see what was going on
exactly
Instagram.
on Instagram. Yeah.
It's
But it's the
important.
loss of movie etiquette, I think, especially with COVID. I think a lot of people got used to being in their basement or in their living room, and they just don't have that, which is a little frustrating, a little annoying. Which
Very
is why
annoying.
I think and I did joke with you, I think that when we make our movie and we have it released in theaters, that it should be that we need to hire Pinkerton guards to just kind of wander the theater and just
just surveilling everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so true, though. I
exactly.
mean, it can like honestly ruin a film in so many different ways. It's like it ruins a film because it's distracting, obviously, but the distracting part you can like miss big plot points, or if there's a specific
Yeah.
scene, it's like, wait, what did they just say? And then, unfortunately, they think they're in their living room, but we can't rewind this.
We
So
can't- we
We
can't-
have no
we
clue.
can't go back.
If you want to see it again, you got to spend another $20.
Yeah,
So-
it is frustrating, but regardless of the group of high schoolers, because they still were, whatever. Backrooms I still enjoyed, and Obsession. I don't think there was any problems with the Obsession theater. I didn't.
No, that was
see
a
any
lot
with that one.
better. Yeah.
But that was also, I think, a little older. But the popularity of both Backrooms and Obsession, especially with the under 35, has been very interesting, because there's kind of been this formula of, the big, entrenched Hollywood in terms of what this group may like and what they would want, right? It's the Marvel movies, it's the Star Wars, but now we have one young directors coming out, and then, with these very interesting takes and interpretations in terms of the horror genre.
Yeah.
And I know we've been kind of going back and forth outside of the podcast, kind of talking about, why they were so big, right? Why did these two movies kind of resonate a little bit more?
Yeah.
And I've told you some of my theories as to why, but
Sure.
you had mentioned the IP for, like, there is kind of an IP, though, entrenched with something like Backrooms.
Yeah, there's like a built-in audience in a way, because these are essentially both of these films are made by YouTubers, like, which is like, they're not the first YouTubers that make movies, obviously, but they had these, I guess, a built-in audience for each person. I know the Backrooms, Kane Parsons, he had his own series, The Backrooms, on YouTube, garnered a lot of following, a lot of interest. The uniqueness of it. I think all of it was essentially like computer generated, which made it so intriguing, and it gave like a more eerie vibe to it. So they were able to capitalize on that. Whereas with Curry Barker, the director, him and his friend, I can't remember his
Cooper, I think, is the other
Cooper.
guy. I don't know his last name.
I don't know his
but I think
last
it's
name.
Cooper.
But they built like a comedy sketch sort of thing
bad
on YouTube.
idea. Or that's a bad idea. or
Yeah,
that's a bad
and it
idea.
just got also a huge following. So you kind of have these, I feel like these are very good examples of two, Gen Z sort of YouTubers that were able to make something good online and then translate that into a different medium and have that be just as successful, if not more successful, because now it's spreading to everybody. You have Steven Spielberg talking about it. You have all these huge names being like, this is incredible. So it's so refreshing in that way that it's also getting good, like it's being received well from the elites, and it's not just the viewers. It's like it's the people that are, the biggest names are talking about it. So
Yeah, no, I agree with that point. I think that there is that kind of built in, but you also have a lot of these people that are, that aren't like, because I knew Backrooms when it was the 4chan creepypasta, whatever.
Yeah, that
And
photo.
and I didn't know that there was the YouTube that they had. That there was the Kane Parsons had a YouTube channel for that stuff. But I know the creepypasta before that, and I had seen some of the "it's a bad idea, that's a bad idea." Some of the like Instagram reels and stuff on the TikTok that would come up on my For You page. But I wasn't really big, following them. So you have other people who, cursory, they kind of knew them, kind of didn't, or didn't know it at all. That still went and see it.
Yeah.
Still went and saw it. And I think while that may be some part of the reason as to why there was like this, entrenched things
Yeah.
for the Backrooms, I think that these movies kind of resonated a little bit more with Gen Z in an interesting way. Because I think I think Hollywood's going to take the wrong message from the success of these films. I think they're going to just try to find YouTubers now,
Yeah,
and
maybe.
that's what they're going to do. And that's again, they're trying to find that built-in IP, and I think they're maybe neglecting or ignoring kind of the thematic and maybe underlying philosophical reasons as to why those movies kind of resonated and hit with that under 35 Gen Z
Yeah.
population a lot.
What's your biggest philosophy into like why this was so different than other like new filmmakers, like these guys are both new.
So I thought for like the Backrooms, I thought that there was there's this concept that Derrida that came up with. He was a French philosopher in the late 20th century called ontology, right? It's HAUNTOLOGY. So it sounds like ontology, which is the philosophical study of being, right? But basically what Derrida says is that this, you can't understand being without, being in time, kind of there's this kind of haunting nature to that perspective, right? You can't really understand the present until you have like the past and the future kind of contextualizing that point. And he makes the analogy of like the melody, right? Where you have a note, and just with that note, you don't really get anything, but that's the only thing you hear at the present, right?
Right.
But that note only makes sense with every other notes that came before it and every other note that will come after it, right?
Interesting.
So that's kind of the analogy for ontology.
Okay.
But there was another individual in the 21st century, Mark Fisher, who was a British academic, who kind of applied that culturally in terms of this idea of these lost futures that, we're not really trying to invent a future anymore. I think that's why you see a lot of this, like a lot of 80s. That's why you have Stranger Things and you have a lot of 80s aesthetics, right? We're trying to reimagine the future through the lens of the 80s or, through the past, rather than trying to create new futures now here in this point. And I think kind of the point of that, right, especially with, with Backrooms specifically, right, is it's set really in like the 80s, 90s kind of office space, mall, type of feel that's there, but it's empty, it's lost. Like that, the sense of wealth and optimism that pervaded the 80s and 90s is no longer there. It's this very haunting liminal space that exists. And I think that kind of resonates a lot, maybe resonates with some Gen Zers in a way, because they feel like a lot of the times, there's this, and they do polling on this as well, that, they feel as if the best days have already happened, right? That they came in at the end, sort of. And there was this quote, I wrote it down because I thought it was very good, that kind of puts this point into perspective, at least with the Backrooms, right? Is that there's a quote from the movie, and I forgot who said it, but it said, quote, "The more it tries to remember, the less it actually does." And I think that's a perfect kind of...
This is from Backrooms?
This is from Backrooms,
Okay.
yeah. The more it tries to remember, the worse it does, the less it's able to. And I think that's kind of, in a way, ties into that ontological point where it doesn't really... You don't really get, you live in a memory, essentially. You live in a fading memory of what exists. Because, a lot of Gen Z kids, right, especially, even now Gen Alpha kind of coming up, right, they don't really have malls. They don't really have these other spaces. Malls are closing down. Malls are preventing kids from kind of going to places and seeing stuff, right? And I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have. And so I think that eeriness that connects, that the space, the place around it kind of connects in that way.
Interesting.
That kind of resonates to some people. At least that's the, kind of
that's
overthinking kind of philosophical.
No, that's a fair theme. I think you could draw from it. And kind of building upon it with like, I feel like back home for me, there's so many malls and like just empty office spaces, and then the whole COVID thing. I think that was a huge problem too, or a huge part of kind of a catalyst to begin really the destruction of both of those like spaces of, I guess you could say, like refuge in a way. Like there's malls are essentially becoming more obsolete. I'm sure it's different in other places, but for the most part, and then. Same with office spaces. Everyone went, remote for their work. Just these like empty spots that had so much life at one point.
Yeah.
And now when you go into a mall that's almost closed down, it's one of the eeriest things, which it's like, wait, I remember when I was here as a kid and there were so many people and there was all these like,
games
and attractions, like food, all this stuff. And now everything's gone. So I feel like yeah, you're right. That does really resonate with the Gen Z or Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and being like they might have these very fleeting memories of being
Yeah.
in those spots as a kid, and now when you come back to it, it's like, wait, this is the same spot, but it's distorted, and
Yeah, it's a very weird feeling that you get, and I think too, with the space that exists, right? And again, I don't think a lot of Gen Zers, people who maybe watch the film, kind of have that. Like, I don't think they really know Derrida's concept of ontology or stuff like that. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of is a theme that pervades. That there's this feeling that's there. There's just this word that's is appropriated from Derrida by
course.
Fisher into a more cultural context here that I think is valuable for putting a name on this weird feeling that you have, like there's these lost futures now where we don't feel like we're going to be, anything else.
yeah,
And I think that was a thing that for the Backrooms, that was something that I felt when I was watching that
yeah.
because again, it's a movie about, it's really just how the place is warping your, and I know that there's the kind of the general theme of Backrooms is really kind of the trauma of Clark, but I think there is a little bit, at least my interpretation, but there's a little bit of deeper reading here in terms of that. I may be right, I might be wrong.
No, probably.
But I think I think it's a good probably.
Well,
No, I think it's a good, but I think it's a good kind of feeling in terms of what a lot of people feel, and an observation that I've had since I've kind of got familiar with this concept and read this concept. I was like, oh wow, I'm kind of seeing it everywhere in terms of why are Stranger Things big? Why do we have these synth music?
Yeah.
Kind of becoming big again.
Because,
we're not really trying. Even a lot of sci-fi movies have very older themes. There's no sense of trying to make things weird or different, or because if it's set in the future, why are we still producing things that look and feel like today, like
Yeah,
2026, instead of we're setting a movie into thousands, if not millions of years into the future, and it still feels like 2026.
right. Even for like modern films that take place in the moment, like we just watched the Safdie brothers' Good Times,
Yeah.
and like or Good Time,
Good Time.
and that had a very like the score for that was very like synth heavy, very like almost like 80s New York sort of crime noir
Yeah.
sort of film. It's almost like when like the Terminator soundtrack. It's just this like I don't know, it like brings you back, but you're still like you would say that movie takes place in the current moment. It's not
Yeah.
a movie that takes place in
It's
the
takes-
90s or the 80s,
no.
it's like right here, but you have that feel. It's like, okay, this movie's going to feel like this, and then it does. It delivers it. It's like, wow. It
Yeah.
kind of just like really encapsulate that whole vibe, I guess, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word.
But I think it's also a failure too of a lot of the creative stuff in terms of sci-fi, that there's not really an ability to create anything that's that feels almost alien, right? If you're doing something in the future, right? You look at some of these older movies, like sci-fi movies, like they tried to make even the sounds like alien.
Yeah, futuristic.
Something that sounds that no one else had heard about or dealt with, and stuff like that.
Right.
And you don't really have that now, I don't think. It's very, they use a lot of the same tropes as before. It's become tropey, it's become standardized, it's become kind of expected, but you'd think that in an alien world set millions of years to the future would have very different, a very different feel than, it should feel almost alien, right? Of course, you need to make things that are, that still resonate with people, that they can
Relatable,
understand stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah.
But the sense of that world building of something alien and strange and different, I don't
Yeah.
really see that with some of the sci-fi movies. But, I think though, and I think that goes against the point of ontology, and that, Fisher also applies that, to politics, to economics, to other things as well. The inability to conceive of the future. I mean, famously, he wrote in Capitalist Realism that, we can imagine the end of the world, right? We frequently do, but we can't seem to imagine the end of capitalism. Now, depending on, I'm not taking a stand on whether capitalism is good or not, but I think it's a very good point that,
Yeah.
we can, we have a lot of these apocalyptic movies, but everything is still, even in the future, it's the kind of this weird capitalist world that exists
True.
there, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I guess my reading of the Backrooms is that there is this, ontological feel
Yeah.
to why I think it might have subconsciously resonated with the under 35.
Yeah,
under 35
that's a
population.
good one.
And again, I think too, you have this thing where it's such a unique condition that I think Gen Z feels, right? Because it's the first generation that really doesn't feel, by every polling metric that I was able to find, that they don't feel like they're going to do better than their parents, right?
Right.
So again, but you have these companies run by and large, older individuals, boomers, maybe older Gen X type population who think, they can't, I don't think they can really resonate with it. I don't think they can really feel what that, or understand what that feeling is like, that they've come in at the end.
Yeah, because they were,
Because they came in at the top.
Right, they came at the top. Everything was the best for them. Housing was, at rock bottom prices. One wage for a family could support a family of 5.
Yeah.
All this stuff, and now all that's, college was a couple thousand a year.
They could work a summer job.
Yeah,
and,
easily pay for it on your
tuition.
own.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that. So I think also going back to what you were saying about the spectacle sort of these sci-fi films and how it doesn't feel like it. When I think of sci-fi, I think of, like a Star Wars or a Star Trek. It's all very polished. It's very pretty. It's very, color oriented. The music, like it's so like epic. But I feel like the one movie that was able to kind of pull, like really, like jump into the future, keep it relatable, but also make it alien was probably Dune. I think Dune universe was the first sci-fi film I was able to see that like confirmed that, all right, this is obviously like a grand epic of a story, and it's humans, it's set in the future, kind of just like Star Wars and Star Trek, but there's this like ruggedness to it. There's even the music like compounded with it. It was, very tribal, the drums that, Hans Zimmer recorded for it and all these things. It's, or like the yelling and the chanting. It's almost like kind of what you were saying before, like the present or the past and the future influences the present. So it's like you can look at the tribal drumming to, our ancient ancestors and how music was first created. Same with like the chanting, but then that's implanted into the future, and then it makes you think of like you're kind of like in the center of it, even though you're seeing something that's, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, I think it does, and I think when Frank Herbert wrote Dune, right?
Yeah.
The books, I think that's what he was going for, was this very alien feel. I mean, you have these giant worms, and you do have, right? There is that Islamic influence within Dune,
sure,
right? With the Fremen, and they're in the desert. They kind of have this very, again, Islamic feel. So that's, I think, one of the criticisms that a lot of people I know had with the Dune movies specifically was that they didn't cast anyone from the Middle East or North Africa, but everyone was like, well, why would you? This is set, but.
Right. Right.
But you get that a little bit of that Orientalism, that kind of foreign feel, that alienness from our Western, conception that's there, that exists, which I think, it does a good job of kind of, the Dune movie specifically is a good, kind of balance of not going too Oriental.
True.
With that.
Yeah.
But I think with Dune, you do have this very weird, because it's also, it's weirdly mercantile, but also feudalistic, right? You have these dukes and lords that own planets, and they have fealty to an emperor, right?
Yeah.
So you have this, the past kind of merging in a weird way with the future.
Yeah, nothing's really changed
different.
in a sense. But
but things have changed.
Yeah,
Like, in the Dune world, things have changed and become kind of weirdly alien. Like, there's a galactic feudal system, but also as the mercantile way with the guild, with the Spice Guild, and you do have this thread of kind of like mystic, desert prophecies that more or less from the Bene Gesserit kind of are manipulated.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it applies this kind of weird thing of, how much is, ask the question of, the prophecies, how much of that's true, how much of that's just Bene Gesserit.
Right. And it's interesting too how it was like, Frank Herbert wrote that in what, 1963?
50s, I think. The first one came out, I think, in the 50s.
I thought it was the early 60s. Regardless, before Star Wars, like that was like the first real sci-fi epic.
It influenced Star Wars.
Yeah.
Paul Atreides is
Luke.
No, I don't think.
Or I guess Anakin.
He's Anakin.
Yeah, I guess he was
Anakin.
It's true.
He is Darth Vader, and also you get the idea of like the desert planet. You have Naboo. You have
Tatooine.
Yeah, Tatooine. Sorry.
Yeah.
You have a galactic, Federation Council that exists here. You have the rebels against the Emperor, right? So you get a lot of the themes that in Dune that really are influenced. You really see the influence of Dune in Star Wars once you read Dune.
For sure.
But because it's interesting. It's also, I think, it's very good world building as well, Dune. I am always a fan of Dune. I think it's great.
Yeah, we can go on for hours.
We could go on for hours.
And once the new one comes out, That'll be our
very
Dune exclusive podcast.
Dune exclusive. I was very hyped for that trailer. That
Unreal.
trailer made me feel so hyped.
Made you tingle.
It did. It did. It did. It did. It was really. But it was one of those things where it was. That's what I like in a trailer. It gets that feeling of.
Because I hate trailers. Like trailers.
I know you do. Yeah,
they
you
give
don't like
so
trailers.
like. I like a good trailer, but like when it's a trailer that gives so much information.
Yeah.
It's like
It's basically the movie.
Yeah, like why are you trying to sell me? You're selling me the entire film before I saw it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're gonna like this beginning, middle, and end because we're gonna show you the whole thing, and it's like I don't want to see
But it's
that.
supposed to be a tease. That's the whole point. It's supposed to give you the vibe. I think I find the best trailers that I like that I resonate with a lot. Where I'm like, where I see the trailer, I'm like, I have to see it.
Yeah.
It's they don't really tell you the plot,
No,
but you get like the vibe.
for sure.
Of that.
You get the urgency of whatever's
Yes.
going on.
Yeah.
Because we just saw when we saw the Backrooms, they played the new Odyssey trailer, which I hadn't seen.
I hadn't seen that one
It
either.
was a good trailer. Like,
Yeah,
it
that was much better than the trailer that was going around on Twitter like a month ago.
Yeah,
which
for
that
sure.
Was, I was
this
not
was
a
like
fan of
very
that
well
one.
cut. You didn't really, you got like the general core of what the film is going to do, but you didn't really understand when it was cut into each scene. You know, it was very limited dialogue. It showed like the main characters you're probably going to see, and some of like the cool events that are going to happen, but. It didn't give you anything. It wasn't like, oh, this is how it's going to turn out. Especially if you haven't read the Odyssey, it's like, oh, I can totally see how this is going to go. So, I definitely appreciated that, which is rare, very rare.
Yeah, there's those trailers that do that. Again, yeah, I agree that when they tell you kind of the whole story, I'm not interested.
Yeah,
You basically told me the story.
Yeah.
It's like the one that we had seen, the Prime Time. That was a good example of that, where you don't really get the story,
Yes.
but you get kind of the vibe that
Because you
is
know
going
what that's,
for
you know,
there.
he's playing
Yeah.
Chris Hansen,
Yeah,
To
it's-
Catch a Predator, all
yeah.
this stuff. It's like,
But you get
the
the
clipping,
vibe. Yeah, it's
such
the
a
it's the
good
vibe. It doesn't tell you anything about
No.
it, right? It doesn't. Are we gonna go from when he was in college all the way to like? What is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it draws you in where you're left wanting more.
It's
and
so
I think
intriguing.
That's a great.
Yeah, you're
I
right.
think
I
that's
can't
a
wait to
great
see
thing.
that.
Yeah, I want to see more of this.
and it's like, I sometimes wonder, I hate when big movies release like 4 or 5 different trailers. Why?
Yeah.
I don't get, like, why are you
Yeah.
giving, like, because that is kind of, you know, say you make a good trailer where you don't get too much from it, and then you do another one with different scenes, and then another one with different scenes. It's like, why are you showing all these scenes? Like, just
Yeah.
the less, the better.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what it is.
No. The less is better. I think
The
that's
less,
a great.
or like a Tame Impala. The less I know, the better.
Yeah,
Like, it really is
literally,
true.
yeah.
It's such a useful line. But
And I think the vibe thing too, especially, and we're talking a lot about. It seems like the theme for tonight is Gen Z. A lot of thing with the vibe, right? I think that's the thing where edits on social media have become kind of like this very big medium now.
like the hype edits.
Not even hype edits. Which yes, I agree. But
Yeah.
but edits for movies, right? I think I've showed you a few of like Lawrence of Arabia edits
Yeah.
and Barry Lyndon edits, and it's interesting that becomes now the way in which people, like a lot of younger people especially, kind of get into contact with not only older cinema but other things as well. And I think edits are very big. I mean, everyone knows about, right, the Hyperborean edits, like the right wing edits. I think everyone has seen
Yeah.
those with like the aliens coming out of Agartha and
Oh,
shit
right.
like that.
Right.
But you have this like this new artistic medium now that's working for social media, and I think that's a big way in which Gen Z is kind of understanding, or that becomes their introduction in a lot of ways to different movies and to different.
And I'm curious,
things.
like, what do you think the
'Cause they get very popular.
they get very popular, but
millions
what's
of
the
views.
motive of like behind it? I guess, like, what is, yeah, it's like kind of it's like a new form of media. It's a new form of media in a sense of like you're like recycling clips from a movie, superimposing it with
some
new music or whatever it is, like new age song, and you're kind of linking the two. Like, is that gonna get the viewers to go watch that movie?
I don't know if it gets them to watch that movie. I don't think there's been any study on that, but I don't know. It's gotten me to watch certain stuff. So, and maybe I'm just very impressionable. But it's gotten me to watch stuff where I see the vibe seems really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of want to check this out a little bit more. I want to see, no, that doesn't mean that as soon as I see the edit, I throw it on. But it's something now in the back of my mind. I'm like, I gotta, maybe check this out.
Yeah.
Down the line eventually.
Save it in your phone.
Save it, yeah.
Watch it every now and again, but like, man, that makes me feel good.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But even just the way too in which they put certain scenes together to kind of create the vibe and what they're trying to do. It's a level of creativity. It's not just taking random.
Oh yeah, it's difficult to
things.
do.
It's very difficult to do, and but I think that in a way serves as a better trailer than some of the trailers that they're making.
True.
I think that Hollywood would be better off if they just found a random Instagram account that just does edits and just hires them.
Yeah, here's our film.
Make it an edit, and
Honestly,
do that. I think
because you don't get anything out of those edits.
No.
It's like literally like 1 to 2 second clips.
boom, boom, boom. Yep.
It's flashing through, and
Yeah.
you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
like this looks.
But I think it tracks too with a lot of the spatial memory, or not the spatial memory, but the space of memory that Gen Z, and younger people have, where it's a very short attention span.
Yeah,
stuff,
like
right?
we
It's
were
a lot
talking
of
about.
flashing lights and a lot of
Right.
and I think that adds to the appeal in a lot of ways.
Fair.
But yeah, I think it's a very interesting medium that's kind of emerged with social media that I've noticed is the edits on TikTok and Instagram. These kind of
just kind of
short
out of
form video
nowhere.
content. Yeah, and they become very popular, and a very good one is very good.
Yeah.
A very good edit is a very good edit.
Yeah,
I
like
feel,
entrances you.
yeah, it really does put you in a weird.
Is that a word? Entrance?
Probably. You're the English major.
You're right. It's a word now.
But I think it's but they're very interesting. But yeah, you do kind of get entranced with the
Yeah.
it's almost hypnotic, really.
It is,
with the
especially when it's
stuff.
like a good song too that you like or that you know.
Yeah.
And like seeing
or just
how
it
can
vibes
emphasize
with it. Yeah, it just vibes with whatever it is.
Because I know there'll be like a Lord of the Rings one, and there's that song. I think it's called Soldier Poet King, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like such a wholesome song. And
They
then
will
those
come
are
the soldier.
Yeah, sing it.
Yeah, no.
No, but that's like so cool, and it's just like a clip from Aragorn, like I would go with you to the fires of Mordor.
Yeah.
It's like, whoo, give me chills,
Yeah.
Aragorn.
They're good. Yeah, but I always like the Lawrence of Arabia ones just because I love that movie so
yeah.
much. I wax on about that. I know I've droned you out in terms of boredom, in terms of talking about that movie, and I know I showed you that movie, and it's.
I mean, it's
I love
great.
that
It's
movie.
it's
I
hard to
love
beat that movie. It had a very similar feel. I mean,
because it did influence Frank Herbert in Dune, right? The blue eyes, right? That because the actor who plays Lawrence,
or just like the stylization of it is like I when I see that movie, I thought of like 2001: Space Odyssey. I don't know if it's because of the cinematography, maybe, and then Barry Lyndon as well.
Yeah.
Like it just had these. It had these like
Technicolor, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's the Technicolor aspect, which is bring back
Yes.
Technicolor.
Yes.
Like, what are we?
That's very expensive.
They're like, oh, it's
but
too
yeah.
expensive, but instead we'll have these CGI studios to
Yeah.
spend $250 million on. It's like
It's and the outproduct is shit. Whereas
Yeah.
you look at, again, I know Barry Lyndon. To me, it's not a movie unless you can pause it and you could take a screenshot of whatever scene it is, and you could basically print it out and put it up as a
Frame it.
as frame it literally. To me, that's
yeah,
like
no, it's perfect.
and Barry Lyndon is one of those ones that's just it knocks that out of the park. The costuming, the design, the colors, the lighting, the
Yeah.
story. It's just such a good, film in my
Yeah.
opinion.
No,
I really
Kubrick-
do love it.
Did something special.
Kubrick is one of my favorite. I mean, maybe a basic opinion among film people, but Kubrick really is one of my favorite directors.
I mean, it's undeniable.
He's
that
amazing.
He's definitely. Yeah,
It's
it's
amazing.
like it's hard to say who's the best director. I know we've had this
we've
conversation.
gone through this many times.
And there's you could put 10 directors right now on that best director spot.
yeah, you could pull 10 directors, you get 12 different answers.
Exactly. But I mean, I think it's undeniable that he created something that influenced so many
Different
of his
genres.
predecessors and genres too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of because what was 2001? That was like late 60s or early 60s.
Yeah.
So it's like he was like the first. I feel like he's one of the first directors that created a very like big like world building And I think the person closest to that is probably Christopher Nolan in terms of his also very big world building. Kind of your thing of taking a photo of of a shot. That's kind of like, I think, for Christopher Nolan, like you take a shot of Interstellar. Like there's so many specific, there's like almost all the shots are excellent. It's like, wow, this could literally hang in my room.
Yeah,
other directors are good in their own ways, but I feel like creating the visualization of the world building that the director is trying to implement, and then being able to pull it off.
Because granted, when I was younger, I used to paint a lot, and I still love painting. I don't paint as much now as I used to before, but I always liked, and I still do, I always liked movies that felt like they were moving paintings. And I always like that style that's there. That's why I liked Interstellar. That's why I liked Barry Lyndon. That's why I love Lawrence of Arabia. Those movies it basically feels like you've just walked into, like you were at an art gallery and you just walked into like a gilded frame. It just transports you completely. Yeah. Right? The attention to detail in terms of the costuming and the set design and just the angles for the cameras. I mean, it transports you into a whole nother world that I don't think you really get now with a lot of the more commercial films. Yep. Right, the big studio films that you don't really.
No, because they're, like we said the last talk, they're appealing to the masses. They want to make sure everybody can understand what's going on. It's all very comprehensible. Whereas, you want all the action, you want the thrill, you want to stay engaged. Whereas something like Lawrence of Arabia, what was it, like 3 hours and 45 minutes? Yeah. Like it's super long. Yeah. And there's so many scenes. Like I remember that one scene where I can't remember it specifically, but it's like that super long shot of him coming on. I think he's coming on the camel.
Oh yes, where he's traveling.
He's super
with this
far
guy.
back,
yes.
and he's slowly coming towards the camera, and that's like a 10-minute scene.
Yeah,
love that.
Beautiful.
I love when movies can do that.
Beautiful.
But then I also hate when there's a film like 1917. And they're like, oh, we're gonna have the whole film in one long shot, even though they didn't. It was like there was like a few.
They did.
It's like, okay, don't make a whole movie. Just like the whole point of that movie is like for the filmmaking aspect. Mm-hmm. Make that part of it. Don't emphasize that. And then after the fact, you could talk about it. But
well, there was one movie I know with a Hitchcock movie with what's his name? God, he was in. Why am I forgetting his name? He was in It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. Rope. Where it's basically one long shot.
I've never seen that one.
Very good, but it has that. He does it fantastic. He does it beautifully well. But yeah, if you can't do it, don't do it. If you don't have the skill to do that, don't.
Yeah, don't attempt it.
But don't release it.
Yeah, attempt it. Don't release it. Exactly.
But but I do. But one of the scenes I always liked in Lawrence of Arabia was when it's at night. You hear the wind is whipping through the dunes, and he has his hands behind his back, and he's walking. He's like in contemplation about whether or not to do something. And I always like that shot.
Yeah,
it's like that dark thing, and he says the wind is hitting, and it's just. But again, it's you have costuming, you have storytelling, but even like the pace. Like I know Lawrence of Arabia for a lot of audiences now is kind of like a slow film. It's kind of a slow burn that exists, but. It's one of those films that you walk away, you're just stunned.
It's like a core film you need to watch if you really appreciate lots of aspects of cinema. It's like that is one of the pinnacles.
It's a beautiful. I mean, I said it before. I watch it every year on my birthday on like a weekend. If my birthday falls on a weekday, I'll watch it. Either weekend besides my birthday. It's just a great film. The writing too is fantastic.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I don't know why. Again, we touched on this last time, but I really don't know why we don't. Why this idea of these movies is supposed to be visually stunning is, become kind of by the wayside. It's just shocking to me that we have that. But
or it's like you can like they can make visually stunning movies, but then they have other aspects of it, whether it's the writing or the acting or the set design that limit it. I'm trying to think of a specific film. I mean, maybe like I feel like we're harping on Star Wars and Marvel so much, but like
because they're slop. I'm sorry, they're slop.
They're like it's pretty. They're like pretty films. Some of the Star Wars like scenes are like, whoa, this is like really cool. but then you watch the whole movie and you're like, oh, that was dog shit. Like that, I like can't even believe that happened. You know, it's like, how can you have so much invested into it? You have like 1,000 people working on one movie. You know, it takes
at least
it takes a village to get this greenlit in the first place.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you shoot for 9 months or however, you know, maybe 6 months max. And then post is like a year and a half. And this is your product?
That's the end.
Like, that's like the whole thing with that's why I love the Backrooms and Obsession, you know, beat out The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no one asked for that movie.
No.
The show was already suffering. Like the TV show The Mandalorian wasn't that good. It was like, it started cool, but got super dumb. And it's like, this was the first Star Wars film in 7 years. This is what you guys have? This is what you're doing?
This is what, yeah. It's
reprehensible.
Very reprehensible. I mean, it's an indictment on the industry, and I think that's why, again, you're seeing a lot of, I think A24 is, you know, becoming more successful. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of more independent film companies becoming, you know, more successful, having a much more better audience reaction than this. Because, again, these movies are, I don't want to say they're children's movies, although that's kind of my secret elitist opinion.
We're just tired. We're just tired.
But again, you have to realize, you know, 16-year-olds are still they're still human beings with very complex emotions. They have a very weird, like, they still have this feeling that's there, right? The same thing with Backrooms, right?
Yeah.
This, not Backrooms, sorry, Obsession, right? Where it's, you know, you have this very every time I go on Twitter, every other week there seems to be another gender war between men and women as to who's the worst and who's, you know, in the dating world and all this other shit. And you know, I think that resonates with a lot of these kids, is that's their you know, that's their reality, right? They have very real emotions in terms of how they interact with
because it's so different now.
Yeah,
it's so completely
different now.
All the apps you have to go on to meet somebody.
Yeah,
it's like if you're not in school or in some sort of activity where you socialize with people on a regular basis, it's like
at work or whatever.
It's almost impossible to like meet people in a sense, in like an organic way.
Yeah.
So
but it's difficult. But that, again, it's a very different, complex set of feelings that come with that, and there's nothing really that kind of hits, you know, with that. But again, they think, oh, they're 16, they're dumb, they're, you know, we're gonna give them a Star Wars again, you know. That'll bring them out.
And it's like I was when I was 16. That's when I'm pretty sure Interstellar came out. So it's like Interstellar, and that's my favorite movie, like top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, was I a Star Wars fan too? Sure, but was I like needing a Star Wars movie or like, oh, what else is coming out? Like, you know, there's like so many dry spells in the theater run. Like each season, there's, you know, like a good movie comes out once every couple months. Now when a Star Wars film comes out, I don't even see it. Like I just have no intention of seeing it.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do anymore because they're like, oh, they're so focused on getting a new fan base or like expanding their fan base, and are totally leaving out the institutional fan base that they've been growing for 50 years.
Yeah.
They don't care about them, and it's like you could have the most profitable Star Wars film, impactful Star Wars film, if you just listened to the fans.
Yes. Well, I think too, my conspiracy theory with Star Wars is that I think Disney bought it because Disney has a lot of their. I know we harp on Disney a lot, which is good. We need to hold their feet to the fire, especially as a shareholder.
For sure. True. It's
important.
important.
That stock is, you know, but. You know, a lot of
just so everyone knows, he's not a big shareholder in Disney.
No, I'm not.
When he uses that,
I'm not a whale.
He just owns stock.
No, but it is my
the shareholders convene.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, I do make my voice heard at the annual meeting.
Oh,
yeah. No, I don't.
Sorry. Keep going.
I don't even vote.
Oh, you don't. Oh my god.
But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, Disney has a lot of like these very feminine. IP, right? They have a lot of the princesses. That's their kind of their bread and butter. You know, that they'll make money on that, and they're generally pretty good. The
animated movies.
But I think they kind of. My conspiracy theory is they looked at their, you know, their spreadsheet or whatever it was. They realized they're not really making a lot of money in the men's demographics. So they said, well, what's a man? You know, what's a more boy? You know, IP that exists that we could use to try to bring in that demographic, and that would have been Star Wars. That's why I think they bought Star Wars. And then they immediately feminized it and removed the aspects of it that kind of made that fan base like it.
Yeah.
Right. That was the reason. Right. And that's not to say that there shouldn't be a female lead or any of that other shit that
No, of course
exists.
not.
But you made it so much. You made it so much of not what it was.
You know that you're like the core massive majority are like.
Because you're trying to get new people. You were trying to turn a boy's IP into a girl's IP.
And wanting to get girls more invested in
Yes.
Star Wars when it's like they just don't. You could have as many female leads as you
never gonna
want.
happen.
Like they're
I
not
think
gonna
every
like
Star
it.
Wars fan has had a moment of like big Star Wars fan had a moment where they were trying to explain Star Wars to some girl at the bar or whatever, and she was just like rolling her eyes like, okay,
Yeah, it's just
gotta
like
get the hell
and
out
that's
of here.
okay. They don't care
that's
about
fine,
it. Like,
Like,
that's why like praise the Lord, Kathleen Kennedy. This is her last year at the helm of Star Wars because it's like she was, the kind of like okay, I'll give her some credit. Assistant producer or co-producer. Part of Amblin Entertainment with Frank Marshall and Steven Spielberg, and like she was in the rooms and everything. More so of a glorified assistant. And then once, it's so funny. Once Disney purchases it from George Lucas, she automatically like gets to stay. Essentially, she gets appointed president with Star Wars. George Lucas has to go into his little shell, and she just lights the whole thing on fire. It's almost like this intentional, like, I never liked Star Wars to begin with, and now I have the moment to destroy it. And she did.
Yeah,
like,
she did.
It's literally gonna take a miracle for Star Wars to regenerate itself.
you need to almost just shelve it for a few years.
I don't even know if that's, but it's like you need to shelve it and you need to gut it. You need to gut everybody that's in it. You have Dave Filoni now and Jon Favreau who's doing The Mandalorian, and they've done good stuff. Like they did some Marvel stuff; they were good. Get out.
But it just shows.
Get out.
And I know. We harp on a lot with the Star Wars thing and with Disney, but it just goes to show because it's the perfect example as to how Hollywood has become so detached from everything, right? I think they don't know. One, I think they're kind of losing how to make good movies. Two, I think they're shutting a lot of young people out of, the writer's room. I think they're shutting a lot of people out from late opportunities to direct and make very big creative decisions and take that chance. And I think Hollywood generally takes the wrong message from when things get big and things get good, right? Like I said before, the success of Backrooms and Obsession is it's not going to lead to letting more young people, giving them a chance.
No,
what it's going to lead to
opposite.
is more. Let's get David Dobrik to direct something. Let's get these YouTubers.
Let's get Logan Paul.
I know David Dobrik's kind of a throwback for whatever. I know he got canceled, but like Logan Paul. Let's get him. Let's get whatever other YouTube we can find.
Because it's like all they're going to see is they have these large
They have an
organic fan bases that we can
touch into.
But it's so funny too because it's like I spoke with a lot of my friends or some of my friends who are actors, and a big thing that they like can't get auditions is because they don't have 150,000 followers on Instagram.
Really?
That's like an actual thing. It's
That's
like
crazy.
we need you to have more of a following in order to market our movie naturally. So it's like you're probably right. They're going to focus in on these people and to be like, they have 4 million subscribers. This is perfect. It doesn't matter if it's good or not, but like
they
we're
have
make money.
They're 4 million people are going to come and see that movie. They're going to spend the $15 or $17 or whatever at AMC to go see it.
That's all they'll focus on is the profitability.
That's all they care.
Yeah, they don't care about the art anymore.
No, they'll get that built-in thing here. But again, Hollywood always takes the wrong message from these things, right? And I don't know how you fix that. Is something that I don't know how you fix. I mean, we live 3,000 miles away from Los Angeles, so I don't know what goes on over there. But I think it's the sun that is kind of poisoning their minds a little bit. I think not having seasons is part of that.
Could be,
but
I think too, just like maybe closing on this, it's like, the whole thing with. I guess a theme of this is Gen Z and young people getting a chance in a way, and if you're not gonna like the only young people that really get a chance when it comes to filmmaking are the actors. And the actors are the ones that can get taken advantage of the most. Yeah. They're the ones that want the fame. They want to, they want the limelight. They want to do all these things. They want to be seen, have approval. So they'll do anything for it. Yeah. Whereas you're never going to see like a young writer in the writer's room. You're never going to see a young editor or a composer. I think like the youngest composer I can think of young is like Ludwig Göransson. He's like 42, I think. Maybe he's 39 or something. But there needs to be some sort of awakening that, oh, you can have a 20-year-old director, a 26-year-old
Yeah.
director. You can have a 20-year-old writer. You can have a 25-year-old editor.
Steven
Let's do that.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg was 27 when he made Jaws.
Yes.
Like,
Let's not like act like it's impossible, because it's not, and it's actually some of the most profitable things on the planet are produced by young people.
yeah.
So let's stop acting. It's just the older generation doesn't want to lose control.
No,
they
they
think they
don't.
know better.
Yeah.
They think they know how to read us better.
They think they
Unfortunately,
know, yeah.
you do not.
Yes, unfortunately, and I am paraphrasing Tim Dillon here, and he's right, is that boomers are the first generation to get old but have no wisdom. And I think that's very much true, and especially with filmmaking. I think they have...
Filmmaking, for sure.
With movies, they, I apply that very broadly to that demographic. They just have no wisdom, and I think they think that they do.
Yeah.
And it's just...
And they have a chokehold. They
Yeah.
have a chokehold on the industry.
They don't want to give up.
And pretty much every industry you can think of.
They don't want to give up their position. They don't want to give up their power. And, but that's the point. You have to. You have to be able to
You
provide
have to pass the
succession.
reins.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
You have to do it. But I think this, this tirade against boomers and the importance of, including Gen Z at the table for film, I think it was a good discussion.
It needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be amplified, and
Because there's a
hopefully-
generational thing that exists.
Always
you can't
has
deny
been.
that.
So,
You can't deny that.
but this was
But-
good.
Yeah. I think this was good. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. On to the next one.
On to the next. See you next week.